Brandon Thurston from Wrestlenomics is up next, and we're going to follow Brandon with John Pollock from Post Wrestling.
Delivering on the returns, increasing our margins.
Ratings go down the toilet if I'm not here.
All I do is simply put the math in my favor.
We agree that Brandon and John do good work.
The reason is simple wrestling economics.
I've been told the Netflix numbers. I've been told the metrics a little bit, probably 5 different times. I still don't get it.
There were respectable wrestling journalists who needed answers.
Thank you very much, members of the media. I hope you all go to hell.
How about we pop a number right here, right now?
Whole part of the show, man.
Hello, everybody. I am John Pollock. He is Brandon Thurston. Combined, we are Pollock and Thurston. Here with you on Thursday night. How are you, Brandon?
I'm fine. How are you?
I'm doing okay. I'm doing all right. We have some topics to get to. We have some challenges that have been made and some unsealing potentially. Some possible redactions that might have to be parsed by one person on this.
We had a guest, but as usual, our guest canceled at the last minute. There was a kitten on my lap just as we went to air here, who was going to add her insight in the world of feline wrestling business news, and but she departed as soon as we went to air here. Not the first time that's happened.
I wanted to ask her what her thoughts are on a Monday night earnings call for TKO that they have scheduled for next month.
Yeah, she is a fraction as old as the WWE merger lawsuit.
Wow. That's a newborn, basically.
She's like 4 months old. Yeah.
Okay. Well, she might make a cameo appearance, so that's a great advertisement for people to watch the video portion. You never know who might drop by here. Off the top, this is a thinner week of news. So Brandon and I were discussing earlier, we're definitely going to lean more on questions that pop up in the chat. You don't have to super chat us. If you throw in a question and it's if
it's a good question.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, we're not going to be asking like, what was your, favorite bubblegum growing up?
No trolling questions. I'm the only one who does any trolling here.
That's Brandon's domain. So if you have any questions, we're happy to take them in the chat, and we will make time for those as well. But we're going to start off with AEW v. Nemeth with a run-in by Brandon Howard Thurston coming in. As this past week we got a ruling by Magistrate Judge Patricia Barksdale, and Brandon, you tell me if I summarize this adequately.
What is I looked at this before we went to air here, and I said, I'm going to explain what a magistrate judge is, since I have some time to fill today. What is a magistrate judge? Do you know?
I woke up today hoping I would get the answer to this.
Today's your day. So a magistrate judge is not the normal kind of judge that we're used to dealing with in federal court. This is an education program as well as a news program. And so I'll probably get this wrong, but feel free to correct me in the comments. So a magistrate judge is like, usually we're dealing with federal judges like Judge Sarah F. Russell, who oversees the Grant case and a few other cases, in fact, that we follow. She was appointed by a president. Federal judges are appointed by the president, and I think they have to be approved by the Senate. Not the case for a magistrate judge. I don't know how magistrate judges become magistrate judges, but they're sort of I think their purpose is to help the judicial system, particularly the federal judicial system, move along more quickly. So rather than causing the federal judge, the normal district judge, to deal with certain matters, the magistrate judge can deal with it instead. And that's what we have here.
Those might be the most glorious words in succession that you hear, is move things along quickly.
And this was a relatively quick decision.
So let's recap this and what exactly was being ruled upon here. This stems from the AEW Ryan Nemeth case, which Ryan Nemeth had filed in February of last year, where he was accusing AEW and, by extension, Phil Brooks, alleging assault, professional retaliation, being blacklisted, which we have always noted. This man has been as frequent on my television as any point in his career. But he has also claimed a breach of contract. That only lasted about 2 months before the sides did agree to go to arbitration. And you would think, okay, the sides, they're going to go to arbitration, no more problems. But then they have had their own belief on where the arbitration should be held, with Nick Nemeth representing the state of California and his AEW contract vis-a-vis AEW wanting this to take place in Florida, in and around Duval County, our favorite county in Florida. So they are at loggerheads as it results to this. Now, during that time, Ryan Nemeth signed 3 separate contracts with AEW during his tenure there, and part of the exhibits that AEW is presenting to argue their case are these contracts where it is written, if there is a dispute, then it will take place in arbitration with a JAMS office in or around Duval County. And so it came with the caveat that AEW also filed to seal these 3 contracts. And somewhere in Buffalo, New York, one individual said, hey, wait a minute, seal these contracts? We might, the public, have a reason to need to see this information. This should be public information. And thus, you filed a challenge.
In democratic societies, there's something called just the common law, right? The common law, which I don't know, goes back to old England and old legal principles that have just been around a long time, and we don't necessarily have laws about them. But one of those common law principles is that when you're in particularly a democratic society, and you've got a judicial system where there's lawsuits and trials, that the public is supposed to be able to observe these things, supervise them, and be able to know whether or not they're fair. There's no secret trials here unless you got an arbitration clause, okay? Unless you agree to it ahead of time. But if you want your dispute to be resolved in a public court by a government judge, well, you've got to do it in a public court, and the public has generally, with some exceptions, a right to access. And that's the story of how we've gotten all these records from the merger case. And so in this instance, so AEW's justification was things like let's do a control F for the word harm. They say, this is AEW saying such information, this is the information that's in their contract. These 3 wrestler contracts with AEW and Ryan Nemeth. They say that such information is non-public and would provide competitors with confidential information about petitioners that is AEW's business, and if publicly filed, would cause irreparable harm to the petitioners. So there's some other claims of harm here probably too, right? The agreements should be filed under seal because they contain sensitive and confidential information which is not readily available to the public and which disclosure would cause irreparable harm. They go through some case law, and I'm still looking for something more specific about, well, what kind of harm? When considering whether to seal the records, yeah, it's case law. Not case law, we'll talk about him later. The disclosure would cause harm to future business interests, yada, 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 more case law. Moreover, redaction or other, and this is the other thing they say. So what you've got to show, particularly I think in this district or in Florida, you've got to say, hey, look, we need to, and this is what they want. They want to file these contracts completely under seal. Now, long-time listeners will remember, do you remember the Ian Riccaboni contract that they did file?
I do.
Do you remember how many words were readable in it?
Less than the number of days that your kitten has been among the living.
It was like the title. It's what we use to make the thumbnail for today's episode. It's like the title. It's a couple sentences at the very beginning, and then it's like this, I don't know how many page contract, nothing but black bars all the way down. So anyway, they say they can't even file this under, with redactions. You just can't do it because why? Moreover, redaction or other means will not cure the harm that petitioners stand to suffer if the terms of AEW's confidential business relationships become accessible to competitors. Therefore, there is no satisfactory alternative to sealing And then purportedly they've met one of the requirements that they have to meet if they're just going to seal this completely is to say this is why we can't redact it. File some public version that has redactions in it. Even that is not acceptable. So, and I think we absolutely talked about this at the time, and I said, that's interesting. I'm going to do some research on that. And research I did, and I tried to, this is my first federal case. This is big. I've been in state cases before. This is my first federal case. So I'm a seasoned veteran of PACER at this point. So I figured maybe there's some way I can get into the ECF filing system, the court filing system, and I can submit a filing that way, which I have done at the state level. Not so in the Middle District of Florida. I had to actually mail this thing in. I had to write a filing. I don't know if you want to narrate some on that, but I had to write a filing and I had to mail this thing in and say things to the effect of, look, the public has a right to this. I take no position on the merits of this issue between Ryan Nemeth and AEW, but the public has a right of access to assess whether or not this action that you want resolved here is going to be resolved fairly. And because this has to do with arbitration and therefore has to do with the arbitration clause and other parts of the contract, I don't know how we're going to do that if we can't see the contract. And if you're going to claim harm, well, the harm has to be more than general, I argue. And I cite case law to that effect. This is a similar argument I make in the Delaware case, in the W merger case, is that in the Delaware case, you have to make a particularized showing of harm. And these are separate states, but AEW's claims are general. And I think that is fatal to their argument just as well, that they're not talking about how they would be harmed. They're not talking about to what interest would be harmed. They're not saying what competitor would potentially harm them. So they've got to get more specific, and that's what I argued. In addition to that, contracts of wrestlers have long been an issue that people like us, but well beyond people like us, have talked about for many, many years. Classification has always been an interesting and confounding issue in the professional wrestling industry for decades. And whether or not AEW's contracting practices are perhaps more fair than others is beside the point. And I don't necessarily take a position about whether or not Ryan Nemeth was actually in practice a contractor or was in practice an employee. But maybe seeing parts of this contract would inform our view of things like that.
So that was the rationale behind Brandon's opposition to the sealing. And so this week, Magistrate Judge Patricia Barksdale ruled that AEW can refile redacted versions of the contracts, but they cannot fully seal the contracts. So in theory, AEW refiles these contracts. They will redact it, which I would venture to guess is going to look something like this. Is this the Riccaboni contract that we're looking at here? No, that's it. This is just a generic redacted contract. We got to be careful here. So then Brandon has the ability to further oppose if he deems the redactions to be too broad. Now, Brandon, if you end up getting the contracts and this is what you see, would this meet your threshold of being too broad with the redactions, if this is what ends up getting filed? If we get an Ian Riccaboni filing?
Well, it depends on what they argue. They are presumably, well, there's all sorts of procedural things we could get into, but presumably they're going to refile this and restate some arguments about why what they've redacted is justifiable. And I will evaluate that closely. I mean, the tough thing in these situations is that you don't know what you don't know. You don't know what's under the redactions to say this is why it should be unredacted. It's not like I'm viewing this in camera, as they say, right, where the judge is able to view something in a confidential manner. I do expect these are going to be over redacted, but we'll see. If they somehow are able to make some particularized showing of harm, that would be persuasive, sure. But I think they're going to err. Their pattern of practice so far has been to err on the side of concealment, and protecting their private business, and their interest is not necessarily the public interest. Their interest is AEW's interest, and that is keeping their contracts as secretive as possible. In fairness, I did apparently make a procedural error here in that I did not need to motion to intervene. The judge indirectly pointed out to me that I could just oppose, and that's what I will do again. And also, the judge denied my request to file electronically, which I asked for. So no electronic filing for Pro Se Thurston. Only you will file by physical mail, as you already did.
You got to get stamps. Go to your local post office box.
Yeah, so if you look at my filing, you'll see that what they do in a lot of these federal cases when you actually mail something in is they will show the actual mailing envelope. So people watching a video here can see my priority mail envelope. That this is my handwriting, and I have, now what a hypocrite, I have redacted my own personal residence address.
Oh my gosh, I'm going to oppose this.
Because
we have a right to know where you are stationed as you speak.
No, because that would cause particularized harm to me, because I have had people send me like images that they've pulled off the internet of my home and like in a threatening manner.
There's a lot of normal people out there that follow your work. Now look at this, everyone. Their eyes are just fixated on this $12.90 that you have to eat, don't you? Because they can't send you a bloody email.
That's true, but that's what the readers' monetary support is for at patreon.com/Wrestlenomics and Substack.
Way asked this question last night. I'm going to relay it to you. Can anybody oppose this?
That's the beauty of democracy. Is that anybody,
you don't have special powers that you.
I don't have special powers. I didn't have to become a certified pro se. No, anybody can do this. Anybody in the world. It's not like I don't think you even have to be a citizen of the United States.
What about at this stage when they post, if in fact they file these contracts? Is it now that this is on you to observe these contracts, or is this still something where somebody could oppose redactions at this stage of the case?
Anybody could. Anybody could do this. I'm not special.
You're special to everybody listening, Brandon. So that is the next stage. Now, the other option is they can withdraw these contracts as exhibits, but that's going to harm their case. This is the language that they are leaning on to get the location of their choosing in Florida. So to remove those contracts would be to not allow the judge to assess what Ryan Nemeth signed in his contract. That, in theory, like that would not seem to be a relevant option for AEW to take, but it is an option that they are presented with.
Yeah, so it seems unlikely that they'll just, unless they withdraw the action altogether. But they're not going to go forward with this petition to try to force Nemeth into their preferred arbitration. And what they say is not just their preference, but is his legal obligation in accordance with the contract to arbitrate in Florida as opposed to California or anywhere else. But they're not going to do that without being able to refer to the contract. So it seems extremely unlikely that they're going to do that. Now, if they could just get Ryan Nemeth to agree to arbitrate in Florida or to resolve this one way or another, then they could just withdraw this and then be all done with it. It
sounds like they assumed that was going to be what was agreed to last year, and then it was, no, we want to do this in California, because both sides withdrew from this lawsuit that was filed a year plus ago.
Yeah, and it's always important to tell people what's next and when and what to expect. So as the judge points out here, the motion to seal and the motion to intervene are therefore denied without prejudice by the earlier of 21 days of Nemeth's appearance. So that means his appearance is, he's got to do something on the docket, him or his lawyer, presumably his lawyer. I don't think Ryan Nemeth's going to file something pro se, but his lawyer would have to do something on the docket, which he hasn't yet in this case. It's a relatively new case, so maybe he still will. So 21 days from that time, or if he just continues not to appear, 111 days from the filing of the complaint, which is June 5th. I did the math. That's September 24th. So the wheels of justice. We do have a magistrate judge here, but I don't know where 111 days comes from, but maybe that's part of a local rule or something.
Well, we hope that the Postal Service is on their game through September 24th, at least, and ready for back and forth lettering.
Yeah, I mean, it's I sort of understand that AEW has an interest and their lawyers have an interest to protect the business's interest, but it would serve the public's ability to observe judicial cases, and it would serve the wrestling industry's interest to have a greater understanding of how these contracts work. And unless you can show some reason why you really will be harmed if this becomes public, then I think the public should have access to those things, because AEW has already made certain things public from the contracts itself in its petition, as it's referencing the exhibits and quoting portions of them verbatim. AEW is not making a claim that they've been harmed by those disclosures. So what about the rest of it?
Yeah, you can certainly look at the fact that there is, like, it sounds from them, they just don't want anybody to see their contracts, whether it is what people are making, whether it is specific language. I think it is a bit of a, it's in their side that they have to make a compelling argument of actual harm that would be caused. You could make a hell of a argument that all performers knowing what each other is making would actually be of great beneficial value to talent themselves.
So that is potentially an issue, right? And I think you guys raised it the other night, is that presumably there's dollar figures here that relate to the compensation of Ryan Nemeth. We'll see if those things can be disclosed or not. I did offer it in the alternative that if the court decides that certain things must be redacted, that the narrow numerical values maybe could be redacted, but we'll see how this goes. I want to point out too, for people thinking about how talent contracts work when it comes to WWE versus AEW. I mean, I think we've seen sort of, maybe this is an NFL thing, but I think we've seen sort of a pattern of secrecy and withholding information from AEW, particularly in the case that presumably all these contracts, or almost all of them, have arbitration clauses in them. That is not the case for WWE, my understanding. Now, I haven't seen AEW contracts, but of late anyway, we have some that are part of earlier legal cases. But as far as I know, the forum where any disputes from WWE contracts have to be resolved in is federal court in Connecticut. So, as far as I know, they are not saying, if there's any disputes here, those have to be a secret process as well. And to offset that even more, after I filed this, and presumably AEW, I don't know if Tony himself was alerted to this, but I did get to ask a question on a media call, and it was another one of those times where I asked a question, and Tony said, "You got any more questions?" to me, and so I've not been punished yet.
Not yet.
So we'll see.
AEW, they have unredacted their plans for September, as they will be going back to the Now Arena for All Out. This was revealed by Tony Khan with Q101 and Voices of Wrestling's Case Lowe. They did a 40-minute or so interview, and the main focus was off the top announcing that All Out will take place Saturday, September 26th at the venue that has housed all but two All Outs in its history. So this comes as New Japan is about to run the same arena on Saturday for the G1 special, and gives WWE plenty of time to figure out what they're going to do that weekend on September 26th, which is an open weekend at the moment now, with AEW planting its flag in the Chicago area.
So that's how many days between All In and All Out?
It's about a month, August 30th till September 26th. So they're not doing the crazy turnaround that they did several years worth.
So if you're only doing NXT PLEs about every other month, which I think is the interval, maybe there's nothing obvious to
You're doing Heat Wave on. You're doing the doubleheader on August 30th. Then they're doing the 2 Triple Mania events in the middle. I think the weekend before this All Out event, and I mean, ultimately they could. They have not made any announcement about a second WrestlePalooza after they had stated they wanted to make that a big franchise show. So WrestlePalooza could very well end up in on that weekend, even on that day potentially. I don't think that's out of the question. They are running the Money in the Bank 2 weeks after this on October 10th. That's the New Orleans show that has been moved around a bunch of times.
Yes, good old New Orleans.
Yeah. You got to hear some of the Case Low interview. Were there any topics that came out? Tony Khan did talk a bit about New Japan representatives at the Forbidden Door show. He went into one of his favorite episodes of Superstars of Wrestling involving Bobby Heenan being handcuffed to a post via the Big Boss Man. And
I got through about a third of this before I ran out of time.
Yeah, it's a very good interview that Case conducted with Tony Khan promoting the big All Out here.
Okay. He was talking a lot about CMLL and the CMLL relationship. CMLL is not doing Captain Falls anymore, I learned.
Yeah, they just hit their, I want to say it was something like their 63rd sellout of the year, which matched their entire total of sellouts for last year that they have done in half the year in 2026. Like, this company is on fire in Mexico at the moment, and I don't think people appreciate just how big CMLL is, especially these Friday night shows at Arena Mexico. But it's Arena Coliseo that they are selling out routinely on Saturday nights in Puebla, which is, it's 3,000, but they are running now Arena Mexico multiple times per week with the World Cup going on. It's just insane, the business that company is doing. They've just sold out 7 Friday nights in a row.
Okay. We do have I'm sorting through the questions. Should I just throw them on the screen?
Yeah.
Let's
do some questions. Sure.
What's the status of the Ring Boy lawsuit? Are there any pending court dates? Did you see the amicus brief that showed up today?
No, I did not.
As I recall, the defendants are arguing some of their U.S. constitutional amendment rights as it relates to the Child Victims Act of 2023, and the Attorney General, as well as the plaintiffs, will have an opportunity to argue against them on that. And presumably, if they don't get a favorable ruling on that, I guess they could just appeal at that juncture, or they could just let it go, and it seems like we're getting close to discovery happening. But there was an amicus brief on that was approved today. It is from this is a motion of Public Justice and the American Association for Justice, the Maryland Association for Justice, Enough Abuse. And anyways, it looks like to be this advocacy group that filed an amicus brief. As I understand, is like, I'm not involved in this case, but I have an opinion about it, and I'm going to let the court know, is what an amicus brief is. And this appears to be an advocacy group that is fighting against sexual exploitation of children.
Yeah, but the case is ongoing. The case is not been settled. It's not been dropped. It continues. And I mean, the last kind of fight was over the continued anonymization of the plaintiffs that the judge did grant that they could stay anonymized, despite the Vince and Linda McMahon arguing that they should be identified publicly.
And that'll be revisited if this gets to trial at that, just before it goes to trial, if it gets to that point.
Do we want to go into any more questions?
Do we have more? I think that's it.
Oh, sorry. I thought you had a bunch there. We also have coming up this weekend. Let's go in order here. We have the G1 that will kick off on Saturday night. They're in Hoffman Estates, the Now Arena, as we had just mentioned. 9 matches that are going to be taking place, and then they will head back to Japan for the remainder of the tournament that runs until August 16th. We have a 20-person field, and more so from the business side here is that this is New Japan returning to America. This show is at around, off the top of my head, about 3,300, 3,400 tickets distributed at the Now Arena. Hiroshi Tanahashi recently did an interview, and it certainly sounds like the U.S. is still a big objective for New Japan, even at a time when I think it's become harder and harder for New Japan to run over here. It's not the novelty product it was in 2017, 2018. You don't have those stars like you did with the Elite that were really valuable tools in coming over to the U.S. And I think this is... I think this show is sort of just an example of it. Like, you're bringing all your stars aside from those with visa issues. Like Gabe Kidd is not on this show, for instance. But generally, like, this is the New Japan roster of the stars you would want to see, and it's in a strong wrestling market. And I just think this kind of represents like what the ceiling is for the biggest New Japan exclusive show it can run in this country without AEW involvement, which, you know, it has Konosuke Takeshita on this show, but this is generally a full New Japan lineup.
Yeah, 3,000. What did you say? It's 3,363 is the last estimate from WrestleTix.
Yeah, so I mean that's, you know, an arena that can hold over 9,000. So and it was generally at that level for weeks and weeks. It's just it's similar to a lot of patterns you see. It's like there's the burst at the beginning of the people that want to see the show no matter what, and then it kind of just stays at a certain level, and maybe you get some movement in those last couple of days. But I think it's just a reminder of where sort of New Japan is in this environment, and it's one where I just don't know what a US plan really entails for New Japan. I think that ship has sailed, and in a wrestling market now that has two big national companies, I just don't know if there is room for New Japan to do anything more than the odd show here, and to go beyond that, like for a tour or something like that. It just does not seem feasible.
Is New Japan to AEW the TNA to WWE?
There's some comparisons to that. I think that New Japan is on sturdier ground than TNA is, but it's similar. Like, there is a big brother component to each of their each of their partners, TNA to WWE and New Japan to AEW. And when you look at, you know, the roster migration to AEW, like, that has probably captured a lot of the former New Japan fans that were the ones going to the Walter Pyramid and traveling when New Japan would hold these shows semi-regularly in the U.S.
Yeah, I'm thinking especially in terms of talent flow, right? Because if you become a big enough star in TNA, you might just get picked up by WWE. It's sort of a graduation. You can look at Ospreay, Okada going to AEW.
Yeah, like you add your even secondary level of like your Jay Whites, Clark Connors, Gabe Kidd. You've created that pipeline, and it's one that I think the audience sees that as well. And that's going to be, I think, this continued difficulty for New Japan is the turnover that is going to exist. And it's one where, well, AEW is one where, you know, they will occasionally send talent back. There is this relationship, but it is New Japan is a far cry from the leverage position it had when AEW was launching until now, where it is very clear what the stronger side of this relationship is. So and no promotion for this, by the way, at all from AEW. Like, it's not like AEW made any mention of this show, or, hey, Konosuke Takeshita will be representing AEW at the G1 this Saturday night. It's like they don't really put any focus on this when they have a big show here in the States.
Is it similar with Ring of Honor too?
Yeah, I mean, you'll get some mentions of Ring of Honor, but they've certainly, have not made that a major point, but they will at least make the odd promotional mentions for Ring of Honor.
So looking back on last year's G1, according to John Pollock via Brandon Thurston, Post Wrestling did report that last year's, the 2025 G1 was about 12% up from the 2024. So,
or is it down? Did that say decrease in the headline?
I'm sorry. That said decrease.
Yes.
Decrease. Yes.
So we will see what this one does. We have, they don't have Hiroshi Tanahashi this year, which they did last year. I don't know how much of a difference Tanahashi really made last year, but this is the year where it's kind of like, this is our core group of talent that we have. There isn't necessarily that one big superstar. Aaron Wolf might have an appeal to some outside, but it's not like he himself has represented, it's like he's done lots of tours this year, and it's not like he has made a giant difference attendance-wise. But I think there's a curiosity to see this guy in the G1, but I don't see that being a big difference maker when it comes to going to these various locations for his matches.
Mm-hmm. Why don't we do SummerSlam and All In next? Because I did prepare some charts for that.
Okay, well, we had dual sales over the past week. I don't know if people realize this, but SummerSlam, you could have had 25% off tickets over the last week. That sale has ended, while All In did a 2-day 50% off sale as well over this past week. So why don't we start with SummerSlam, and where does SummerSlam stand after this sale and with just a couple of weeks to go until their 2-night event in Minneapolis?
So I did math here today, and SummerSlam Saturday. So these tickets have been on sale for how long? About a month or so, it looks like. It's in Minnesota, 2-day event, of course, just like last year. About 24,000 are out for Saturday. About 24,000 are out for Sunday. That's where they're at, which at the same point last year, they were doing much better. You can say what you want about ticket prices and do the math in your head, I suppose. But so I did some math, and I will spare you the mathematical explanation in audio. But I did a projection because, of course, there's going to be this big spike at the end, right? So this math is accounting for that, as based on how last year's tickets distributed estimates from WrestleTix performed. We're looking at a final landing point of 30. Well, let's do the first one: 31,000 for Saturday and 32,000 for Sunday, based on the current pattern, which would be well down from last year of over 50,000 each night.
Yeah, this is. I feel like at this point, like, we have now introduced like the major matches for SummerSlam. They've really like just stalled at this, and this whole 25% off sale, there was minimal movement of these tickets. Like WrestleTix tracked this, that over the 3 days, like there was just over 400 tickets they moved for night 1, and under 600 moved for night number 2. So I mean, when we're talking about a stadium, like it's not like the sale made any kind of, it didn't spur anyone on to, well, 25% off. Now I'm going to make my plans to go to SummerSlam. So I don't doubt that they're going to get that late movement. I think fans are almost trained now to wait until the end. But I think this is more indicative of, fans that, for instance, maybe would be traveling to this, that maybe are not opting to make this a traveling show, or if they're doing so, it's still the idea of like outsmarting these prices and waiting till they come down at the end. And when you see this movement, you would be wise to think that prices will get slashed at the last minute if that's a barrier for people to be spending on the current price tickets.
Could they announce this is Brock Lesnar's retirement match? That has not been made clear, correct?
Well, it's not like they prostituted that retirement earlier this year just for no reason. So yeah, you could totally lean on it with the, I promise this time I'm retiring.
Is Greg Gagne available?
Yes, Greg Gagne could definitely show up. I think we could do
special referee Brad Rengis.
Brad Rengis could, maybe he walks Brock out, okay? The other wise man in Brock's life. All in London had its 50% off sale, and that resulted in almost 1,200 tickets being distributed. So All In is now up to 28,100.
28,000.
That was the last thing. That was the last number I had seen. I don't know when you last checked.
I did this earlier this afternoon, but yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, so that is where we are at for the Wembley show, which is 8 weeks away at Wembley Stadium as well.
Oh, so I have this number here from Wrestlenomics, 29,000. It's at as of today. So, maybe it's. I don't think that's rounded. That's an actual. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, what would be success for this event? Pretend you don't see my projection here.
40.
That's exactly where it's.
Is it?
Where it's at? Yeah. Based on the patterns of, we have two examples. I'm throwing in Texas here as well as the London of 2024, and you get it again. This is math. There's no arbitrary guessing here. It goes to just about 40,000.
Yeah, it's is that a reasonable goal to hit 40?
I mean, based on the math, absolutely. Yeah. So it takes into account where they have been up to this point, and if you just continue the usual pattern out, it gets to 40.
Yeah, Way's suggestion is that they should promote this as this is the last time we're running Wembley for a long time. We're not running the stadium for a long time. That might be the push. We'll see. They now have the big match announced with Omega and Ospreay. Is that going to be a difference maker? It could be. I mean, it's probably the biggest match that you have to play on this card, and there's certainly time. They have pretty much the entire summer to now promote this card and move it towards that figure. Will the math add up? That's the big question. All right, Conor McGregor is coming back this weekend. Are you going to be watching UFC 329?
Maybe for journalistic purposes at least.
Well, let's do a recap from Andreas Hale at ESPN.com. November 22nd, 2024, Conor McGregor found guilty in a civil suit stemming from an accusation that the fighter sexually assaulted a woman in a hotel room back in December 2018. McGregor was ordered by the High Court in Dublin to pay €248,000 to his accuser. The Irishman denied the accusations and stated he had consensual sex with his accuser. He is not currently facing any criminal charges from the incident. The woman accused McGregor of forcing her onto a bed, choking her, and making her fear for her life. According to BBC News, a paramedic who treated the victim told the court that he had never seen such intense bruising on a victim. "I will be appealing today's decision," McGregor said in a statement on X. "The judge's instruction and the modest award given was for assault, not for aggravated or exemplary damages. I am disappointed that the jury did not hear all the evidence that the DPP reviewed." He would go on to attempt his appeal, and his appeal would fall flat. And that is probably the most prominent of what is a insane list of misdeeds that the man has had over the last several years. But he is coming back, and it's quite the interesting dynamic that you have between a majority of the Irish population that traditionally would overtake the host city of a Conor McGregor fight, and you're not seeing any of that this time around. And it's very different in terms of the embrace he is receiving on this side of the ocean in Las Vegas, where it's the big return of Conor McGregor, and it's going to do probably the biggest gate in the company's history on Saturday. And over in Ireland, they literally there was a bar, like an Irish bar in New York, that has announced that it is not airing the fight because of Conor McGregor's because of these terrible accusations that have been made against him.
Yes, he sent me that. This is the article from the Irish Mirror, dated today. If all this wasn't enough, his competitive integrity seems to be under fire, as Michael S. Schmidt taking another shot at Conor McGregor in the New York Times. UFC star said to have continued use of banned drugs after injury healed. A follow-up on Michael Schmidt and I believe other reporters at the Times reporting on the prescriptions, the substances that Conor McGregor was using following his bad leg break.
Yes, their first report centered around
the drugs made him feel really good.
Yes. They had originally stated that, well, he needs these drugs to recover from his leg injury. The New York Times spoke to 10 sports physicians, all of whom said, we have never heard of these drugs being necessary to recover from this specific injury. And so a lot of people were like, well, listen, he was hurt. He needed drugs, whatever. And then this report states, well, once the leg was healed, he continued using all of this. Now,
one of the people said UFC officials learned from McGregor that he had remained on the drugs because he liked how they made him feel and the energy they gave him.
Well, human growth hormone will have that effect, as will artificial testosterone. So, yes, they make you feel good.
Anabolic steroids and human growth hormone.
So, the side of like the response the UFC has given and McGregor side has given, it's like, listen, I've been tested since I re-entered the pool and I haven't tested positive. It's like, yes, but you had years of inflating yourself like a Goodyear blimp, and you are now going to benefit from the effects of all of this. I mean, I don't sense that there's all that much outrage, because I think everybody looked at this guy and why he left the pool, what he did while he was away from the testing pool. I think everyone saw this. It was just this gaping hole in the testing system that you can leave the testing pool, do whatever you want, and then you can re-enter the testing pool and you could benefit. Look at this. Look at these. Look at that photo on the right. So anyway, that was it's.
Thought I was watching WBF for a second there.
I think maybe he has some ideas for another TKO entity that they can get off the ground potentially for Conor McGregor's post-fighting act. So,
he's not favored to beat Max Holloway, by the way. The odds are, I don't know, it's what, minus 120 to bet on Holloway here. So if he loses in decisive fashion, is this it for him? He's 37.
I don't think so. He's got 2 fights left on his deal, including this one. And I think he could lose these 2 fights, and I think a Netflix would still jump on this guy. We've seen too many people with this star power that can absorb many losses, and fans will come back for them. I don't think a loss, even a terrible one, is going to... I mean, it's going to take some of the luster off of him. It's certainly going to remove him, I think, from... a certain tier that I think a lot of fans still hold this guy in that realm of when he was competing, at his peak a decade ago. But it's also taken place at welterweight, which Max Holloway has never competed at before. Like, he is certainly going to be the bigger of the two, but I don't know if that's necessarily going to be an advantage for a guy that, his cardio is definitely going to be questioned. It's always been a bit of a liability for McGregor. He's carrying a ton of weight in this fight. I would not be picking him to win this fight, but there's a lot of questions from the fact it's been 5 years since he's fought. God knows what this guy has, the lifestyle he has lived over these 5 years. And the fact he's coming back from his leg being shattered on top of it. Like, I don't think you can make a comparison to the same guy that last competed 5 years ago and what version you're going to see on Saturday. But it's one that I think it's going to be a really big and successful fight. And I think that there is a lesson there.
On track for the new gate record.
It is, yes. They had stated it's already over 20 million, and it's expected it could top the record that they drew at the Sphere a couple of years ago as well.
Do we know what that number is?
21 point something, I believe, was the final number for the
So
Sphere.
between WWE and UFC, WWE has the bigger all-time gate. Because with 33, 2 nights at WrestleMania, the first Vegas,
yes.
well, 2025. Also, Neil Flanagan wrote a column for Post Wrestling. Conor McGregor is selling America a comeback story, but Ireland isn't buying it, emphasizing how unpopular Conor McGregor is. I recommend people read this. How unpopular Conor McGregor is in Ireland, as opposed to the United States, where everything's fine over here. He's showing up on Jimmy Fallon and having a great time. What is it about?
Maybe Jimmy Fallon just wasn't aware. Maybe Jimmy Fallon just he didn't go on his Wikipedia, or he didn't scroll to the bottom where it says legal issues.
Yeah, I guess all of his because you would think he'd be like, if not for his issues, sort of a national hero. And would you say that he kind of was until?
Oh, he was. He absolutely was. Like in his heyday, like just covering some of his fights, and like the amount of people that
travel in from Ireland.
Oh, dude, he would bring like the Irish fans, many of whom like they wouldn't even go to the fight. They would just go to the city, and they would just, it would be like chaos in the streets of them just singing and dancing. Like they just love this guy. And it's why, this time around, like, yes, it's going to be a full building on Saturday, but I think the makeup will be very different for those that are in Vegas. I think it'll be very different from the vibe of, a traditional Conor McGregor fight. That I think a lot of fans are just in this time warp that they just want this to be 2016 all over again and remove themselves from a lot of the just horrific stuff about Conor McGregor and just pretend like this, like that's the outside the cage character, and we just want to celebrate the fighter and take us back to like the heyday of the UFC for one weekend.
Do Irish people have standards?
It appears so. It appears that your star power doesn't negate horrific actions that he took, and that a court of his peers found him civilly liable for. Like his brand has just been extinguished there. Like it's I really encourage people to read Neil's article because he articulates it very well. Neil lives in Northern Ireland.
But
so
in the U.S., you could still be president and have similar legal issues.
Well, over here, man, it's just the woke mob that's trying to cancel people. And let me just say, if there is a place,
it sounds like you have standards in Canada too.
Well, it's we sometimes are accused of such. But if there is a sport you want to go to repair your image, dude, MMA, that's the sport for you. Like it will embrace you, no questions asked. It's like
all your friends will be there.
Graham Plattner, dude.
Will Graham Plattner be making his debut at UFC this weekend?
Might be. Hey, Graham. We don't know what tattoos we get. Who cares? Allegations. Anyway. All right. That's the return. That was your UFC 329 preview with Brandon Thurston.
Yes.
Yeah. Final things here.
Yeah, we have many questions from a particular listener that we will tackle, but we can do it at the end.
Okay. The last few things here. Dark Side of the Ring premiered on Tuesday night with a 2-hour season premiere. This was on Jeff Jarrett and the Battle for TNA. 119,000 viewers and a .04 on Vice TV for the 2-hour premiere.
Okay.
Yeah.
I would have to look at the data lined up across time for all these episodes.
And as I mentioned earlier, we do have the first ever, to my knowledge, Monday night earnings call from TKO.
I didn't notice that. It's a Monday night.
Yeah, they're going to release their second quarter results Monday, August 3rd, with a conference call to proceed at 5 p.m. Eastern time on Monday night.
Wow. Monday night earnings call. Monday night earnings. We'll work on the branding.
Yes. I'm sure Mark is busy at work to come up with something that rolls off the tongue. So yes, that will be coming up in a couple of weeks with all the Q2 rundown, which will include WrestleMania, which will include the UFC White House card as well. So quite the second quarter for TKO.
Okay. Now we have a lightning round from a listener.
Oh goodness. Okay. This is how we're going to wrap up.
David Bixenspan.
Not familiar.
He says, Brandon, bro, why didn't you have recap turned on? As I said at the top, there'll be no troll questions from anyone except for me. I will make an exception for this one time. Do we know what recap is? Everyone's dying to know what recap is. It is this Chrome browser extension that if you use it and then you open a legal filing through the federal legal filing system called Pacer, it will automatically be shared with everyone. I did, and it should be up there, Bix. I don't know. Hit refresh. I've got a question for you, Bix says. Brandon, how do you become a draw? How do you make money in this business?
Stories.
John, what do you think caused Eric Bischoff to sever his relationship with Vince Russo?
Okay, I'm going to explain this one because this is the best. So after this TNA episode aired, and Neil and we are going to do the Vince Russo book on book club in August. So I went to the Amazon page to look for this Vince Russo book, and I scroll down and I find something called a book trailer. It's like, oh, what's this? And it is Vince Russo on camera, very clearly reading his script, because it's not his stream of consciousness yelling at me to buy his book. It's like he's very clearly reading something, and he reads it, and he's like, find out, what did Eric Bischoff do to sever his relationship with me?
Oh, did I pronounce this wrong?
He pronounced it severe, but it was meant to be sever. And that was kind of his giveaway that the man was reading. But that and his eyes just going left to right on the screen as well. But my highest of recommendations to go watch the Vince Russo book trailer on Amazon. Okay. Total nonstop agony.
John, if you had to choose between Brandon from New Jersey and Aaron from Cape Breton, who would survive?
Oh, you know what?
I don't know.
Andrew from Cape Breton, a great listener, but I'm ride or die with Brandon from New Jersey.
LMAO. Brandon, did I fail in not ever filing pro se legal action? Well, I learned from the best, as some trolls have said. I'm just a Bix in training, and I've just evolved to the next level because of the things that I've learned. From
you know what we say here at Pollock and Thurston? The best time to file pro se was yesterday. The second best time to file pro se is tomorrow.
Anybody can do it. It's not
Anyone
too
can
late.
do it. Anyone can do it.
It's never too late to start. In Bix's defense, he was maybe not doing things in the age of AI, which is helpful. But yeah, it's I think it's been a real learning experience, and just in learning how you think, there's these powerful institutions and the judicial system, and it's too big for me. But, I think powerful people don't have as much power as you think they do. And we have more power than we know, but we just have to figure out how to use it. And getting access to the legal system is a big step. I did disclose that, I do use AI to help me write the legal filings, because I'm not a natural law student or attorney, but I do read the case law closely. I spend many, many hours writing these things myself.
As some very important people have said, you could have been a great lawyer.
Many people are saying, many people have said it.
That's what people say. That's what people say. Okay. That's it, everyone. It was a bit of a slower week this week, but hey, a fun time nonetheless. And we will be back next Thursday. So continue that. We will, Brandon, have you submitted your picks for the post-wrestling G1 Climax contest, which is open for another 24 hours or so? Okay. Free to join.
I'm a former G1 champion.
I know you are, so I hope that you'll be defending.
That's how I got to host this podcast,
championship again. Postwrestling.com/G1. Get your picks in by Friday night at midnight. You have to make all your picks in the matches. The less you know going in, the better, and the better you will likely perform. So get your picks in. I know Brandon will join. I know Bix and Span will join. I know Brandon from New Jersey will join. I know Andrew from Cape Breton is going to be joining. I know that Jumanji Hunter is busy filling out his ballot as we speak. So join all of the cool kids as well, as we will be following along with all of our G1 podcasts up on the Post Wrestling Cafe throughout the summer. But you can also spend your time over at patreon.com/Wrestlenomics. And hey, while you're at it, Wrestlenomics.substack.com as well. We got to put some love for
it's all the same stuff. Yes. Whichever you prefer.
Go support the man that is pro saying on a daily basis for you, the viewer.
I got legal filings. I gotta mail in. So I got postage to pay for.
Yeah. Those $12.90, okay? They don't pay for themselves, okay? The court they have not installed AOL. They do not have a Juno email account. Nope. It's thumb drives that you can come to the courthouse and pick up.
No Dropbox. No Google Drive.
Here's a carrier pigeon, okay? That's how we're going to get the next voicemails over to you.
Yeah. And then there's a lot more to do.
Okay. So go follow everything. Wrestlenomics.com, postwrestling.com, and thanks to everybody for listening, learning, and pro saying.